Welcome to week 3 of the West Texas Friday Night Preview Show. Mark, we've got another great week in front of us, but what a bunch of great games we saw last week, or great performances.
Well, no question about it. I mean, you see some point totals that got up into the 60s and 70s last week by certain teams. Incredible finish, the Estacado Hereford game where the Mats score on the final play of the game to win that one. I mean, there were some tremendous performances this past week, kind of setting us up here for week 3, where you begin to start seeing who's truly a contender for perhaps district championships and on into the postseason this week.
Well, you mentioned Estacado, James Bozeman, 91-yard kickoff return for a touchdown, 35-yard touchdown run, 43-yard touchdown run, and then, like you mentioned, win on the final play of the game.
No doubt about it. We'll have that and more on the West Texas Friday Night Preview Show.
Welcome back to the West Texas Friday Night Preview Show. Mark, it's time where we look at our biggest games on the board throughout the whole scoreboard coverage area. And we've got some dandies this week, starting off with Tascosa, the Rebels at 2-0, taking on a 1-1 Lubbock Cooper team, but could very well be 2-0 as well.
They could. Of course, they had the 2-touchdown lead in week 1 against Lucas Lovejoy. But to me, this is going to be Tascosa's defense, who's given up a grand total of 3 points in the first 2 weeks against a good offense in Cooper. They scored 49 last week, 31 in the opener, so they're averaging 40 a game. Tascosa's defense is allowing 1.5 points per game. So something's got to give. And in most cases, it's the other side that will determine the outcome. How good will Cooper's defense be against the triple option attack of Tascosa? I mean, to me, this is one of those that I could see easily going a lot of different ways. Obviously, the lower the score, the more you lean towards Tascosa in this game. The higher the score, the more you lean to Lubbock Cooper. Feel real strong about that. So to me, okay, then what's that number that you get to? I think if it's 21 or less, it's Tascosa. More than that, I would take Cooper in this one, because these two, they've played now for 4 years, or the last 4 years, and Cooper leads 2-1, but when they were district foes in 22 and 23, Tascosa beat Cooper for the district championship. So this has been a really good matchup the last 4 years. But again, not necessarily picking a winner, but I am saying you look big time at the score. That number to me is 21 in this game. Less Tascosa, more Cooper.
Let's move now. The Dumas Demons travel over to Canadian. Both teams undefeated, 2-0 on the year. Dumas has been hanging up a lot of points, but I don't know that they played a defense like Canadian yet.
Well, to me, one of the most impressive things so far is the way Canadian shut Bushland out in the second half last week to end up winning that game 24-14, 17-14 at the half, then 1 touchdown for Canadian in the second half, and that's it. Definitely more of a defensive kind of game. Leads me to believe, again, I don't know. I don't look at this one the same way I look at Cooper and Tascosa in terms of if it gets to a certain number, it's one way or the other, because I think both teams are capable of scoring. To me, I am going to be intrigued to see Dumas. They've scored 51 in each of their first 2 games. I don't think they get near that total, but I do think if you get to 24 in this game, I think you have a legitimate chance to win, because I think your defenses are good enough in this game to keep it at somewhere like a 24-21 type game.
Very intriguing game in the Big Country. The Wall Hawks travel to take on Jim Ned, and Jim Ned with that impressive win over Lubbock Estacado. Even though Wall's already played Mason, I've got to think this is the toughest test yet for Wall.
Yeah, I would think so, probably. But, and I mean, you think about this game, the last 3 years, it's been determined by a grand total of 7 points. The game in 22, remember, was maybe the last 3-0 game we've had in this part of the world. Weather played a factor in that, but it was 3-0, Wall winning that game back in 22. So these two last year is a 1-point game. 2 years ago, a 3-point game. 22, a 3-point game. I expect it to be that way again. I do think this one is more of a defensive kind of game. I do think, again, you get around 20 points and you're going to have a legitimate chance to win.
The Vernon Lions 1-0 after their first week of the season. They didn't get to complete their game. Takes on 2-0 Wichita Falls City View at City View. And City View impressive so far, but Vernon looked pretty good last week as well.
Well, Vernon in their first game looked good. Last week, of course, against Gainesville, they got weathered out. So they were up 7-0 early, and then it was a no contest. So they did not get credit for that victory because they played less than a quarter of football. But to me, I want to see how Vernon responds in this matchup because City View, to me, they beat Windthorst. Yes, smaller school, but they went to Windthorst and won last week. So I like City View just because they've had a little bit more rhythm. It will be very interesting to me to see how Vernon shakes it off, having 14 days between game one and game two. Obviously, they're not the only team in the state that's dealing with that, but I do want to see how much rust Vernon has versus the way that City View has been playing. You know, they play week one, play last week. You know, they're into a rhythm. Vernon is not.
Here's a really interesting game to me. Brady coming off the big win over the Mason Punchers last week. Now they host an Ozona team with probably one of the better rushing attacks down in that area in the small school divisions in Ozona. This is a very interesting game.
Well, I tell you, Ozona's put up as many points as anybody in the state of Texas, 141 points in their first two games. They shut out McCamey 65-0 in the first game, beat El Dorado last week 76-29. Now, you know, now they definitely take a step up playing Brady, and don't underestimate the value of them beating Mason last week because, I mean, this is, those two – the rivalry is kind of different. To me, from what little I've talked to folks that talk about this Brady Mason rivalry, it's not necessarily the bitter rivalry that you have with some, because there is a little distance between them, and the fact that our friends at KNEL, they carry both Brady and Mason, so there is some unity there, so to speak. But don't underestimate what Brady did last week. Now, do they go to, and they get Ozona at home? I think the Bulldogs are going to have enough defense in this one. Again, the higher the score, the more you lean towards Ozona. But I do think this is one that Brady will get.
State-ranked Groover takes on, to me anyway, a surprising West Texas High team. West Texas High putting a lot of points on the board this year.
Well, they are so far, but again, playing a defense like Groover for the first time, and we'll see what they've got. I mean, they put up 76 last week, just like we're talking about with Ozona. They put up 76 in a 76-0 throttling of Shamrock after putting up 53 in week one against Lockney. They're not going to be able to do that. So some of these teams, Stephen, that have put up such huge numbers early, you got to find a way to say, okay, you're not going to score 50 and 60 a game. How are you going to win a game like this where Groover's not going to give you more than about 20?
Right. And certainly West Texas hasn't faced this caliber of an offense so far.
No doubt about it. We'll get into the regions when we come back on the West Texas Friday Night Preview Show.
Welcome back to the West Texas Friday Night Preview Show. Mark, it's time for us to go down to the Lubbock area, take a look at those games on the South Plains. Let's start in the lower classifications. New Deal 1-0 on the season, taking on an undefeated Slayton team, and a team that really looks to make some noise this year.
Well, we've talked a little bit about Slayton already. I mean, they won 7 games last year. I mean, their goal is the postseason and beyond this year. Meanwhile, for New Deal, and by the way, Matt Hill, congratulations on career win number 100 last week. And that was an interesting game for them because, of course, in week one, they did not get to play because they got weathered out. but to come back and win impressively like they did in their 35-14 win, I think that speaks a lot to the Lions, and that's why this is a semi-featured game on the board. This is the 18th all-time meeting between these two. New Deal has dominated, winning 12, losing just 4, and 1 tie, and this is the 18th meeting. But Slayton last year taking advantage of some opportunities, some turnovers, and they won 26-17 a year ago. So I tell you what, playing at Slayton, I think the Tigers are going to be the team that goes to 3-0 by the end of the night. I just like the way that they have been playing and continue to play. Give me Slayton, but close game.
If I told you before the season started that this Friday night, Wichita Falls Legacy would have more wins than Friendship, would you have bought it?
I'd have said, give me what you're taking, and hand those over because it's not legal.
That's Friendship right the ship.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, yes, Friendship has played 2 very good football teams, Byron Nelson, who plays South Lake Carroll this week, and Wichita Falls Memorial, whereas Legacy, they beat Coronado, lose big to Tascosa 53-3 last week. But Legacy having to make a second straight long road trip, last week to Amarillo, this week to Wolforth. And I think the Tigers get some things right, and not just because of the opponent. I think a lot of what Jay Northcutt's team did last week was better than week 1 against Byron Nelson. Again, just not converting on as many opportunities as they need to. But I do think the Tigers get into the win column for the first time this season on Friday night.
Coronado travels to Abilene to take on Wiley. I really don't like their chances.
Well, and this is the first of 2 straight road trips for Coronado down to Abilene, because they get Wiley this week. They go back and play Cooper next week. Yeah, I don't know that Coronado gets into the win column, because I do think Wiley I think they'll rebound after that loss to Monterey, a game that they really thought they should have won. I do think they're going to come out with a lot of vengeance and fire at home. I'm with you. I think Abilene takes care of business here.
Monterey looks to build on that momentum. They take on El Paso Franklin, but a road trip there as well.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly how Jason Sims' team will handle this, if they'll go Thursday or just get up early on Friday morning. My gut would tell me they'd go Thursday. Anytime you make that long a road trip, when you're talking 6 hours, takes a lot out of you leg-wise. But I do think when they get on the field, I mean, don't get me the line. I know absolutely zero about El Paso Franklin. I mean, our man David Thetford and Randy Dean are going to make that long road trip to call that one on Friday night. But I do think Monterey, even though Franklin's a 6A team, both 1-1. Again, El Paso schools are getting better, but I still like Monterey in this one.
West Plains has Estacada, and Estacada used a lot of energy last week to knock off Hereford. Do they have anything left in the tank for a really tough West Plains team?
Man, after what an emotional game for them to win on the final play of the game, after Hereford thought they had stopped them with no time left, but there was less than a second because the horn had not gone off. They get one more play. They run a little snap to a defensive tackle who's lined up as a blocking back, and he rumbles in the end zone for the winning touchdown. First time he's ever touched the ball or gotten in the end zone in his career to win 35-33. I do think if Estacado is going to have any shot of winning this game, they must have at least 3 explosives, 50 yards plus, whether it be punt return, kickoff return, run, pass, or say like a blocked punt, blocked field goal, something along. They must have momentum type plays, because I don't know that just lining up against the big front that West Plains brings. I mean, forget about Reed Macon and all the skill that they have. They've got a big offensive front. They've got a Kansas State commit up front. I don't think unless they get a bunch of big plays and West Plains turns it over, this one will be tough for the Matadors.
Lubbock Cooper Liberty 2-0 on the year. They're hosting winless Monaghan's team.
When Monahan's struggling to score. Now, granted, they played two pretty good opponents in Shallowater and Randall their first 2 weeks, and they're getting another good one in Liberty this week. I like Joe Sexton's team here. I think they go ahead and take care of business. They get to 3-0. I think their Liberty's big test is coming next week when Seminole comes in to Patriot Stadium. But I do think that Liberty much ahead of Monaghan's right now, kind of a rebuilding mode for the Lobos and our man Randy Hogan.
Idalou is at 0-2 on the year. They're playing a larger classification level end, still looking for that first win. Can the Lobos tack on their second win of the year?
Could. I do think that this is picked as a very close game. Leveland, from what I've seen, a slight favorite in this one, but it's just hard for me to believe that Idalou could be 0-3. But I also believe in what Lyle Leong is doing there at Leveland. He's built it from 1 and 2 wins to 6 wins last year. I will be surprised. I don't know who wins this game, but I'll be surprised if it's blowout city one way or the other. I do think it's going to be an entertaining game at Lobo Stadium.
Littlefield hosts Abernathy. Littlefield looking to go to 3-0.
Well, and having to do that, fighting some injuries last week and plugging in a sophomore at quarterback and just keeping it rolling. I mean, even in week 1 against Lamesa, and just they fought injuries and they just keep finding a way to win. So good for them. Can they keep it up against Abernathy? Definitely possible, especially at home. Give me the Cats.
All right. When we come back, we'll have more of the big games all across the West Texas Friday Night Scoreboard Show area. I'm Stephen Orr. It's the West Texas Friday Night Preview Show. Welcome back to the West Texas Friday Night Preview Show. Stephen Orr, Mark Finkner, and Mark, it's time to take a look at the Texas Panhandle. Let's start off looking with Hereford hosting the Plainview Bulldogs. Plainview coming off an impressive win last week, and we've already talked about Hereford and the heartbreaking loss that they had.
Yeah, I mean, it will be interesting to see how these two teams respond in very different fashions. I mean, Plainview in a shootout against Pampa last week, winning 49-41. Meanwhile, Hereford, they thought they had the game won against Estacado. They'd stopped the clock with less than a second left on it. The horn had not gone off, and Estacado got one more play from the half-yard line, and they run the little, I say little, it was their defensive tackle right over the guard. They snap it directly to him. He walks into the end zone. Hereford didn't know what hit him. Touchdown, game over, and Estacado wins 35-33. I mean, a lot of times, Stephen, in a game like that, when you're the road team, you don't get the benefit of that. Estacado did, and they took full advantage of it. Now, what does Estacado get this week? West Plains, the number 2 team in the state. Congratulations, Eric Ward. This is your reward for winning against Hereford. You get the number 2 team in the state. Now, it is at Lowry Field, and it will be fun, but we'll talk more on that in a minute. But Plainview Hereford, a great rivalry for many, many years. These two have just gone back and forth at it. Of course, you've got the added element with Adam Nairn, the Plainview native, now coaching at Hereford. We'll see what Hereford's made of in this one. I think the Whitefaces rebound. I mean, I just think they'll have to, it could be a little rocky for them for a while, but I do think Hereford will ultimately come out and win this one on Friday night. But I do think it's going to be a fun game, an entertaining game, and where I think we're going to see a lot of big plays.
Very interesting game in Panhandle, traveling up to Dalhart to take on the Golden Wolves. Can Dalhart find the end zone?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be one of those things that you start looking a little bit here because of the way Panhandle scores 71 and 61 in the first 2 games. Dalhart, one of the things they have to do at home, they can't get down 14 or 21 early, because if that happens, it's good night, because Broxton Robinson and that Panther offense will just be too good. They'll be too good. But Dalhart's got to play good defense and not feel the pressure right away to try to match score for score with Panhandle. I do think that they have to do that. If Dalhart can keep the game at 28 or less, they may have a shot at here. But I do think the Panthers, this could be one of their toughest tests. But I do think they win and stay undefeated.
The Amarillo High Sandys take on Midland High. 2-0 versus 0-2. You got to feel pretty positive about Sandys in this one.
Well, and what they've done so far, I mean, against two other 6A opponents from the 2-6A district and beating them both. Now, again, they make the long road trip. How does that affect their legs? To me, that's one of the things, especially in non-district play, you have to look at is when you make a 4-hour-plus trip, how does it take it out of you? Obviously for Amarillo, it didn't affect them last week going to San Angelo. I don't think it affects them here. I think they're just a lot further along than Midland right now. I do think Amarillo High keeps it rolling.
Harvesters of Pampa travel to Amarillo to take on the Caprock Longhorns. Somebody's going to win this game. And looking at the season so far, I got to kind of lean with Pampa. They've been competitive in both games they've played.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. A 1-point loss to Iowa Park and the loss to Plainview last week by 8. Meanwhile, Caprock has had a tough time getting anything going so far. In fact, they are one of 7 teams in our coverage area that through 2 weeks have not scored a single point. Now, with that being said, this game is actually being played at WT on Friday night. You got the fair coming. You got Paladuro also at home that we'll talk about in a minute. So you have one of those weeks, and we've seen it the last several years. And boy, what an opportunity to get to play at that beautiful stadium on the campus of West Texas there. I mean, it is absolutely creme de la creme. I hope to see a game there late this season. May get a chance to do Angelo State and West Texas A&M there late in the year, but that's going to be that's always a fun experience for guys to go in and play in a college arena, a college venue, big time. I mean, this will be a lot of fun, I think, for both of them. But to your point, I do think Pampa will get their first win of the year on Friday.
West Plains and Estacado, we've mentioned that already. Estacado going to be a tough out for West Plains, but one I think they're completely capable of handling after that linebacking core had 91 tackles between those 3 young men last week.
Well, here's the thing. If Estacado is going to have any shot of winning this game, they have to hit on big plays. Have to. I would say Estacado needs 3 explosives, like 50-yard plus, whether it be kickoff return, punt return, pass reception, running the ball, reverse, whatever it is. I think for Estacado to have a shot in this one, because West Plains offensively is so efficient, so good. They and Panhandle and Ozona being another one in our coverage area that's been so good so far and efficient offensively. Estacado, if they're going to have any shot, they've got to have at least 21 points from explosives in this game on Friday night to have any kind of shot.
Sunray still looking for their first win. Stratford, as we mentioned, licking their wounds after last week. This is a vital game for both of these programs early in the non-district campaign.
It is. I would like to say that, yeah, it would be a great opportunity for both to try to get some things right. Stratford at 1-1, Sunray at 0-2. Stratford had the 14-0 win against Abernathy in week 1. And by the way, folks, the last time Panhandle beat Stratford by at least 40-plus points, our man Stephen Orr was still in high school. But that's a whole other story for another day. But that was impressive what Panhandle did last week to Stratford. But I do think the Elks will right themselves. I think they're in a little bit better position right now.
Let's jump to 6-man, a team that you and I are following closely. The Crest Kangaroos take on a winless Southland team. Crest could start their season off at 3-0. for the first time in a very long time.
Yes, they could, and I definitely think it's out there for the taking. And boy, and remember, Stephen, Crest was a program. They were the next to last program in all of West Texas Friday Night Scoreboard Show area to announce their new head coach. They didn't announce him until August, and yet here they are on the precipice of being 3-0. Go Roos!
All right, when we come back, we'll take a look at more big games throughout the West Texas Friday Night Scoreboard Show footprint. And I'm Stephen Orr. This is the West Texas Friday Night Preview Show. Welcome back to the West Texas Friday Night Preview Show. Mark, let's go down to the Concho Valley. Start with the Cooper Cougars of Abilene taking on San Angelo Central, who's still trying to find the win column. Central needs to figure out how to put more points on the board and shut down the number they're giving up, because that's a huge number.
Right. To me, that they got to turn that faucet off, man. Allowing over 40 in both their games so far. Got to find some answers there defensively. But they've got an opportunity here against Abilene Cooper because Cooper, they put up a big number against Azle in week 1. But man, this is one of those that both teams feel like they have a legit chance to win. Oh, another one of those old South. You got 2 old Southwest Conference matchups this weekend. You got Cooper and San Angelo Central, and you got Permian and Abilene High. But when you look at Central, they played Abilene, they played Amarillo. They played 2 good opponents. They put up over 20 in both those games. They get Cooper at home. To me, this is a game they really need to get because they've got back-to-back long road trips into Central Texas the next 2 weeks through the Bobcats. They play at Belton and at Waco. Belton's 2-0, Waco's 0-2. So Central, this is, for 2 teams that really feel like they need a win. To me, this really feels like an absolute must for Coach Mark Smith's Bobcats against Cooper. I think they get it as long as they don't press too much, because sometimes when you start thinking, oh man, we gotta, and all of a sudden, then that's when you try to grip something so hard, and then it just goes right through your fingers. But this is a big game. And Stephen, we can talk just a minute here about the entire 2-6A. We talked about in week 1, nobody won a game. Last week, only Permian wins a game. 2-6A is 1-11 out of the chute so far. Any win you can get. Now, granted, some of these teams are playing great opponents, but yeah, Central, this is an absolute must for them on Friday night.
Lakeview feeling really good about their season so far as they're 2-0, but they traveled to Lamesa to take on a team that you probably better not overlook, because it could be a tighter game than you think.
Well, and I think this is going to be a high-scoring affair. I think both teams can really put the points up. In fact, San Angelo Lakeview starting 2-0, second time in 4 years they've done it, but only the 3rd time since 1997 that the Chiefs have started 2-0. Now, if they win, they get to 3-0. Last time they started 3-0 was 2019, where they started 3-0. They lost their last 8. And you're like, well, wait, that's 11. Right. Yeah, you do the math. They were in a 14 district, so they got in the playoffs. They lost in the bi-district round. They started 3-0, did not win a game after that, and gave up at least 38 in every single game after that. Now, if they beat Lamesa, Stephen, and get to 3-0, could you tell me, and I'll give you within 5 years, the last time they started 4-0?
The early 90s.
Further back than that. How about 1983? The last time they started 4-0, way back in 1983. They were 9-2. They lost to Monahans in week 5, and then they lost in the bi-district round to Estacado. And in 1983, for you long-time timers out there, yes, Estacado made the state championship game before losing to Bay City, and a guy who later would play a major role at Oklahoma State, Hartley Dykes, and Bay City. They lost to Bay City in the state championship game, so no shame there. But Lakeview, if they can win, they've got a shot to be 4-0 and have a real legitimate chance at their first winning season in 21 years. This is a big, big game for Lakeview. I hope they don't overlook Labisa. I think it'll be, to me, this is a game that could be in the 40s for both teams. I think both teams going to score a lot. I don't trust either defense much, but give me the Chieftains to go to 3-0.
Grape Creek takes on Bangs. I think this is two evenly matched teams. Whoever gets off to a fast start has the advantage.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think early on the first quarter in this one may tell the tale of the night between these two. Two teams really trying to get some things straightened out and get them going. Grape Creek got an opportunity here in this one, going on the road to Bangs. Grape Creek's won a game, Bangs has not. Give me Grape Creek to get to 2-1.
Mason takes on Coleman in Coleman and looking to rebound. They have questions to answer in that clubhouse right now.
Yeah, well, again, you look at who Mason has played. They played Wall and they played Brady, two good football teams. Now, Stephen, here you go. The last time Mason started 0-2 was 2020. If they do not win this game and start 0-3, the last time they started 0-3 was, oh yes, you guessed it, 2020. And if they were to not win next week and start 0-4, the last time they did that was, oh yes, you guessed it, 2020. But again, Mason has that incredible district winning streak of 68 straight. So, to me, as long as the punchers just continue to work on improving, to me, getting off a close loss last week, 24-22, rebound, go on the road to Coleman. I think it's going to be another tough game. I think it's one that comes down to near the end. Coleman's playmakers against Mason. I really do not have a feel for this one at all. I just think it's going to be a good game.
Another good game just because it's a rivalry. San Saba and Goldthwaite, long-time rivals.
Tied for the 7th longest meeting in the state of Texas. This will be the 108th time that San Saba and Goldthwaite do battle. This is one of the great rivalries in all of Texas, meeting for the 108th time and all time in the series. San Saba leads 62-40. And 5. They won last year. They've won the last 3. How about this? They've played every year since 1953. They have played. This series started way back in 1915, the first time they ever played. So, and there were a couple of years where they actually played twice in the regular season way back in the day too. So these are two that they don't have to travel far. They know each other. This is going to be a fun one. Anytime you get one of these type games, this is one of those that we'll talk about in the next segment. One of the great rivalries as well in the 6-man ranks that we'll talk about in a little bit.
All right. When we come back, we're going to take a look at more great matchups. You're listening to the West Texas Friday Night Preview Show. Welcome back to the West Texas Friday Night Preview Show. Mark, now we head down to the Permian Basin to talk about some interesting games there. Let's start with Permian hosting Abilene. Abilene looking to go 3-0. The Panthers will have something to say about that.
Yeah, they might. These two have split the last 2 years. Abilene won 2 years ago, 49-14 handily. Last year, it was Permian 42-37. They got up big. Abilene came all the way back to win, but Permian doing so. I think this is going to be a close game. One prognosticating service thinks it'll be a 2-touchdown game for Abilene. I don't see that. I think even though Abilene's at home, I think this is a tight game. But I do think Abilene wins this one at home. Tight. Give me somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 7 points. But I do think this is going to be a close game on Friday night.
Midland Legacy continues with their philosophy of
Sure.
if you're going to be the best, you got to play the best. They're going to travel down and take on Lake Travis, another really tall order for a good Rebels team.
Well, and Stephen, the thing I liked out of Clint Hartman's team last week is the fact that, week one, Allen kind of blows the doors off. Last week, Legacy comes back. They play a much better game. They only lose 28-16 last week. I thought definitely played a much better game against Euless Trinity, but their third straight top 10 team. They played number 5 week 1, number 9 last week, number 7 this week at Lake Travis, none of them at home. So this is a tall order for Legacy, but again, playing a top 10 team to within 2 scores last week, I think that gives the Rebs some confidence in this one. Now, do they beat the Cavaliers? I don't think so, but stranger things have happened. That's why you play the game.
Amarillo High comes to Midland to take on the Bulldogs, and the Bulldogs have a really good Sandy's team coming in.
Yes, they do. And how do they rebound after the just gut-wrenching loss to Pebble Hills 13-12 last week? A game that was low scoring throughout, obviously, but it was 12-6. Pebble Hills scores late. They get the extra point. They win 13-12. How does Thad Fortune's team rebound off a game like that? But they better get off the mat, because Amarillo has 2 wins over 6A teams already in Odessa High and San Angelo Central. They're trying to play up, and I think Amarillo High wins this one, but I do think Midland is going to put some points on the board in this one. I look to see a better performance out of the Bulldogs offensively on Friday night.
Let's talk San Angelo Lakeview. They're 2-0 on the year, coming in to take on Lamesa. This is a huge game for both of these teams.
Well, it is because San Angelo Lakeview could get to 3-0 for the first time since 2019, and then they didn't win another game after that. But you kind of get the sense that maybe this is the year for Lakeview. They've not had a winning season. They've had a couple of 500 seasons, but they've not had a winning season since 2004. I mean, think of over 20 years since they've had a winning season. And they get Lamesa. The Golden Tornadoes are 0-2, but they put up 47 in week 1 against Littlefield. Yeah, you better not sleep on them. I think there's going to be plenty of points in this one, but I do think the Chieftains get to 3-0.
Andrews comes off a loss last week in a low-scoring game. They lost to Canyon 22-16, and they're taking on that Midland Greenwood team that just mopped the floor with Sweetwater.
Yeah, if I was Andrews, man, I would wish this game is at home, because I think if they were at home at the Mustang Bowl, I think they'd feel a lot better. But man, Coach Hill and Greenwood, I don't see Andrews beating them. The way that they're playing and the way that they're clicking offensively and defensively, the way they're swarming to the football in what few clips I've seen so far, the Rangers. Very tall order for Andrews Friday night.
Fort Stockton travels to Pecos. This is a long-standing rivalry down there. Fort Stockton looks to be the better team to me on paper.
Well, they've won the last 4, 6 of the last 7 in this series. This is the 99th meeting between these two. Pecos leads 61-32-5, but it's been Fort Stockton more recently, obviously, with what they've done. Pecos has not won since 2020. Pecos showed me a little something, in week 1, getting Snyder in double overtime. But I like the way Fort Stockton rebounded. I think the Panthers go on the road and win this one.
The Seminole Indians host Sweetwater. Seminole off the win last week. Sweetwater on the losing end to Midland Greenwood. They're really trying to reestablish their identity. Not a great place to do it, as far as I'm concerned.
No, not at the Wigwam. I think Rob Franklin and the Seminole Indian radio guys are going to have fun on Friday night. I'm not saying it'll necessarily be a blowout by any means, because I think Sweetwater's got a lot of talent. But I just think this is a tough ask. I like Seminole in this one, and I think they could put up another 40 spot or so in this one.
The Bushland Falcons come to Midland to take on Midland Christian. The Falcons coming off a loss last week to Canadian. How do you see this playing out?
Well, I tell you what, Phil Dawson at Midland Christian has started to really kind of establish some things. I mean, they played Graham to within 10 points last week. They had their game near the end called with about 4 minutes to go. They beat Dallas Bishop Lynch, and they get Bushland at home. I think after playing them last year and playing them on the road, I don't know that they're intimidated. I think that this is going to be a very good football game. I think it's close. Playing at home gives Midland Christian a little something here because Bushland making the long road trip. To me, flip of the coin, and not going to surprise me either way in this one. I think it's going to be one of the more entertaining games. I think lower scoring would favor Bushland, in my opinion, although they can score. I mean, obviously they put up 55 in their win against Borger in week 1, so it's not going to surprise me there. I think it's going to be an entertaining game. Winner might need to get to 30, although I think it'll be a little bit more defensive game than that, but we'll see.
Odessa's Compass Academy host Reagan County. Compass Academy looking to continue to build on the momentum that they've gotten over the last year or so.
Yes, sir. The tri-champions last year. They're off to a 2-0 start this year. Reagan County at 1-1. Man, there's something about this bunch at OCA. This is one of those proving type games for them. They really need to prove it against a quality team in Reagan County. I think if they win, it really sets them up nicely for the rest of the season.
All right. When we come back, we'll take a look at more of these good matchups. I'm Stephen Orr. You're listening to the West Texas Friday Night Preview Show. Welcome back to the West Texas Friday Night Preview Show. Mark, now we head down to Texoma, the Wichita Falls area. And one of the really interesting games there, probably the biggest one in the area, is Windthorst taking on Munster. Both of these teams losing last week to bigger schools.
That they did, but it was competitive in both of them. Windthorst losing to Cityview 27-20. Munster losing to Holiday in an absolute shootout in the second half. Ultimately, Holiday winning 48-44. And I like the fact that the pollsters this week in the AP poll kept Munster at number 1 despite that, because of the way that they played and competed in this one. I think there's a lot of credit there to the AP voters in what happened there. These two go at it. They've been district rivals at times. Right now they're not in the same district, but could play in the second or third round of the playoffs. You look at these two in the history between them. Munster's had the best of them recently. In fact, Munster leads the series 12-5. They've won the last 3. You got to go back to 20 in the state quarterfinals. The last time Windthorst beat them, when they beat them in the state quarterfinals, they beat them twice. They beat them in district and then beat them 30-20 in the regional final there. But of course, none of that matters on Friday night. To me, I mean, Windthorst has allowed 42 and 27 in their 2 games. To me, that they have to answer the bell here. But Coach Carney's bunch at Munster, I think they've got enough bullets in the chamber, so to speak. I think Munster wins something to the tune of like 44-27. I think Windthorst will score. I just don't. I have not seen enough good defensive play out of Windthorst yet to make me believe in them enough to slow a team like Munster down enough.
Wichita Falls Legacy hits the road. They travel to Friendship, a team that's desperate for a win.
Well, when you and I were talking earlier, the fact that Legacy has more wins than Friendship right now, that's just craziness to me. But again, everybody's records, especially early, are not built the same. Friendship's 0-2, Legacy's 1-1. Who have you played? Friendship has played Byron Nelson, a fringe top 25 type team in the state, and Wichita Falls Memorial. Legacy has played Coronado, and they've played Tascosa so far. 2 teams from from the Panhandle South Plains, and now they get another one in Friendship. But I do think the long road trip, and I think Friendship going to be really hungry and give. I mean, last year this was a walkover. I don't know if it's a walkover this year in terms of like 60-0, 7. I think it was actually 70-0 last year. I don't think we're going to see that, but I think Friendship big in this one Friday.
You mentioned Wichita Falls Memorial. They host Fort Worth Dunbar, and Memorial's clicking on all cylinders right now.
Boy, that they are, man. What a momentum boost for them. Our man Corey Hogue telling us after week one that that Coach Bendel at Memorial did not think they played a very good week one. Well, they definitely played better against Friendship in week two. They get a team in Dunbar that, just not at their level. I think, especially at home, I think Memorial wins this game, and it could be big, but it's definitely going to be a comfortable win, I think, for Memorial.
Graham hosts Whitesboro, and the Steers, another team that are really playing towards the top of their ability right now.
Well, I want to see what Graham's made of a little bit, because for the second year in a row, Springtown puts it on them, and I mean put it on them last Friday night, winning 37-6. They put it on them a year ago. Graham rebounded with 8 straight wins. Now, will they do that again? Who knows? Whitesboro, a solid 3A1 team, but I do think Coach McChristian's team is one that's going to rebound. They were very embarrassed last Friday night. Very rare that you see Graham play 2 poor games in a row. I think the Steers come back, and this one could be big.
Burke Burnett makes the trip to Iowa Park, and Coach Wood has those Iowa Park team really playing well right now.
Well, the Hawks are doing, enough to win right now. They've had a couple of close wins, but they've been wins. And, taking on a team that they're very familiar with through the years in Burke Burnett. This is the 86th all-time meeting between these two. Burke Burnett leads 50-33, but Iowa Park won last year. They won the last 2, 5 of the last 6 in this series. And, again, this is kind of, as you get to that 1/3 mark of the season here after 3 weeks, it doesn't tell you who this team will ultimately be, but I do think Iowa Park does get it done, and they go to 3-0.
Holiday rolls into Fort Worth Benbrook.
This is going to be a closer game than I think some people think, because Benbrook, a very good 4A team. It's not going to shock me, especially after the way Holiday played last week. We talk about some teams that have questions to answer. They're one that has a few questions to answer. They give up 44. They won, but you still give up 44 points last week. So how do they come back against a bigger school? Benbrook, not the best team by any means, but I do think Holiday has got their hands full in this one. To me, this is going to be a close game, but I do think Holiday wins.
Jacksboro takes on Peaster.
Man, Jacksboro just not the same that they've been the last several years. Give me Peaster in this one.
Alvord takes on Archer City. Archer City's 2-0 on the year. Alvord at 1-1. Can Archer City find the win column?
Yeah, at 0-2, I don't know if this is the week right here for A City to break out. Possibly, but maybe I'm giving Alvord too much credit, or maybe I'm not giving probably more like I'm not giving Archer City enough credit. Again, on the board, because I think it's going to be a competitive game. To me, flip a coin and let's see.
The Quanah Indians are off to a hot start. They take on a Petrolia team that they should have an edge on, I think.
A little bit. I do think Quanah has played a little bit better than a lot of us thought they might here in the early portion of the season, and I do think they go on the road. Again, some of these teams that are 2-0, they go on the road, not necessarily for the first time, but they're favored on the road. And sometimes when you got people patting you on the back, you're playing great, that's when a letdown can happen. They cannot let that happen. But as long as they play up to their capabilities, give me the Indians.
All right. We'll be back with more right after this on the West Texas Friday Night Preview Show. Welcome back to the West Texas Friday Night Preview Show. Mark, now we head down to Abilene and to big country matchups. Let's start with a big matchup, Permian and Abilene High. This has the makings of a really good game.
It does indeed. I mean, these two played 42-37 last year, Permian winning. Permian was up big. Abilene came back and almost came all the way back to win it last year. I do think at Shotwell Stadium, this is going to be a it's going to be a great atmosphere. The days the old Southwest Conference or the little SWC between Permian and Abilene High. I mean, these teams meeting for the 62nd time all-time. Permian's won 2/3 of the matchups. You look at schedules, you see how have teams gotten to where they're at. Permian at 1-1, they lose to Plano. They beat El Paso, Eastlake last week. Abilene with 2 solid wins. Man, I think this is going to be close game. Most people think the same, that it will be a close game. Surprisingly, Abilene is at least in one ranking about a 2-touchdown favorite. To me, I find that a little shocking because I think this will be a close game. But I think the home field, and as long as Braden Henry is doing what he's doing, give me Abilene High by around somewhere to 4 to 7 points. I think it's going to be an entertaining football game. I think a lot like last year. I think we're going to see points, but give me Abilene High. I think they're just a little more explosive.
The Cooper Cougars make the trip to San Angelo to take on the Central Bobcats, and San Angelo Central's got to find a way to score, and they need to short up defense as well.
Well, yeah, I think to me, Stephen, that's the bigger question for them, because you look at the way that Central, they're scoring some, but man, they're just giving it up, man. 42 and 41 in their 2 losses. I mean, they've scored 21 in each of their games against Abilene and Amarillo, both 2-0 teams. They get Cooper at home this week. Cooper played well for a half against Abilene High. Before the second half, Abilene High's just talent just kind of overwhelmed them a little bit in the second half. I mean, if they're going to get in the win column for Central, this may be the week to do it, because they go to Belton next week, and then they go to Waco High, who doesn't have a win yet. But again, that's a decent road trip for Central. If Coach Mark Smith's going to get one, this better be the week. And I think they do it, but we'll see. I think it's going to be a close game. Close. Could even be overtime.
Abilene Wiley hosts Lubbock Coronado, and Coronado has really struggled so far this season as well.
They have some. I mean, just trying to figure some things out, and you hope that I hate to call it a collapse against Legacy in week 1 when they were up 9 in the fourth quarter and not able to hold on. And then last week against Cooper, they stopped Cooper on their first drive. And then after that, Cooper scored 4 touchdowns. They were up 28-0 at the half, win 49-14. They've got Wiley, they've got Cooper in their last 2 games. And then they open up district play with Tascosa, Monterey, and Abilene High. Yeah, Coronado's got to try to find some answers here these next 2 weeks. I don't know if it happens this week, though, against Wiley. I think Wiley's going to rebound.
The Brownwood Lions travel to Glen Rose, and Glen Rose not what they've been in the past, but neither is Brownwood. This is a game that could answer some questions for either one of these clubs.
Yeah, for somebody, they'll get their first win, and again, this is much like wondering, okay, certain teams that are 0-2, you don't expect Brownwood and Glen Rose to be teams that are 0-2 after 2 weeks. That's just not what they do. I mean, these are 2 proud programs, both finding it difficult to score. I mean, Brownwood got shut out in week 1, so they've got to do some things here. To me, Stephen, I think it's simply 2 fairly even teams. but I think Glen Rose with a little more recent history and playing at home, give me Glen Rose in a tight one.
Sweetwater, a team that has been living with an offensive identity, gets held to 8 points while giving up 47 to Midland Greenwood last week. They're going to take on a very good Seminoles Indian team at the Wigwam. That's not a rebound game that you would ask for as a coach.
No, and the way that Seminole rebounded last week after week 1 against West Plains and put up 45 in their win, man, right? Yeah, this is a tough ask for Sweetwater. Because I think Greenwood's a better team than Sweetwater, and oh man, I just think this is going to be a tough week for the Mustangs. I think the Indians, and they could win big.
What's your take on Clyde and Shallow-Water? Clyde's at 2-0. They've looked really good, but I'm not sure they've played the Shallow-Water level team yet.
No, I don't think so. And I for that reason and that reason alone, I think give me Shallow-Water in this one. I mean, when you break down Clyde a little bit, it's Cisco and Eastland to their 2-0. Nothing against those teams because we know what they're capable of. They put up 33 and 52. But again, this is the second of 3 straight weeks on the road for Clyde. And when you look at what Shallow-Water has done, I think the Mustangs win at Todd Field at home.
Cisco takes on Breckenridge, and Cisco is, I think, a tick off from what we're used to seeing out of Cisco, but Breckenridge struggling to find their identity.
They are, but I was impressed with what the Buckaroos did against Childress last week on the road, only losing 21-14. To me, that tells me something that the kids, improved from week 1. And now, obviously, in week 1, when they play Holiday, one of the better teams, they're going to play at all. But to come back and play well on the road at Childress, or play maybe not well, but play better than they did in week 1. I think this has to give the Buckaroos some confidence, especially at home. It's I don't know that it's rivalry, but I mean, they've played a lot through the years. They know each other. They're not that far away from each other. I do think this is a close game. It's not going to – I think Cisco wins, but it's sure not going to surprise me if the Buckaroos get their first win.
De Leon on the road at Valley Mills. Can they rebound?
Yes. Enough offense, and I don't think they've got much problem here. I think De Leon takes care of business in this when they get back into the win column and do what they need to do to get to 2-1 after that loss last week to Stanford.
Really quickly, Albany travels to Seymour, probably the easiest game they've had to start the season.
No doubt, considering their first 2 opponents, even though it's a long road trip. Give me the Lions and give them to me big.
All right, we'll be back with more right after this on the West Texas Friday Night Preview Show. Welcome back to the West Texas Friday Night Preview Show. I'm Stephen Orr, joined by Mark Finkner. Mark, let's talk a little 6-man football, and there's some really nice games when we look at the board tonight. Let's start by talking about what should be a 10-mile drive. Gordon taking on Strawn, but as we mentioned earlier, Gordon, all 10 games on the road this year as they try to repair their stadium from storm damage. So they're going to make the trip to Stephenville to take on Strawn. Strawn, a really good team, but
no doubt. Yeah, they're good, but are they Gordon good? We're going to find out. I mean, one service thinks it's going to be a 45er just like everybody else against Gordon the last 2+ years. There's another one that says, Gordon by 13. Okay, well, we'll see. But it is one of the great rivalries, one of the longest standing rivalries in all of Texas in 6-man football, playing for the 78th time. And it's almost even. Strawn 39-35-3. Strawn is, the last, several years it's been Gordon. The last Strawn win was in 21 when that kid named Grayson Rigdon was a freshman at Strawn when they beat them twice that year. They were district rivals that year. Beat them in the regular season in the final game, then beat them 3 weeks later in the state quarterfinals and the regional final. These two go at it. This is a game that I tell you, but before I see Jesus, this is one that I want to go see. between these two, and then pick my place to eat because there's a lot of them between Gordon and Strawn that I can go choose from, no doubt about it, baby. I got a choice of at least 3 different chicken fries if I want them. But yeah, this might be Gordon's best test outside of the 2 11-man games that they've got coming up. I think as far as 6-man, this will be the toughest. I mean, obviously with the great tradition, the history, the rivalry, all of this between those two. But can Strawn hang with them? To be the man, you got to beat the man. I don't know that anybody beats Gordon in 6-man this year. Give me the Longhorns, and I think they keep the 45-point thing going. But I do think Strawn takes it like into the 4th quarter before they finally succumb.
Benjamin at Borden County. County, that established name brand. Benjamin relatively new.
Well, and Stephen, remember last year when these two played, Benjamin had the longest winning streak in the state of Texas at 30. And Borden County went into Benjamin and won. High-scoring game. They put up over 90 and won the game. Man, looking forward to hearing from our man Ricky Torres, who gives us those Borden County scores every single week. And I think this is going to be a very entertaining game. And to me, because of what Borden County did a year ago at Benjamin, I think there's a little psychological there that is to their benefit. Give me the Coyotes in this one.
To me, Rankin has been a little bit of a surprise early in this season, and they're taking on a Westbrook team that, in my opinion, may have taken a slight step back. I mean, they're just the reload. It's not a rebuild, but a reload a bit.
I will say this. Rankin has been about as impressive as anybody. They've shut out both of their opponents, including Happy, that we'll talk about in a little bit if we have time. But, man, the Red Devils have been superb on both sides. Just speed, quickness, aggressiveness. Love the way Rankin has played the first 2 weeks. Now going to Westbrook, Westbrook seems to have one of those games every year where either somebody sneaks up on them or they play a close game and they just end up on the wrong side. I mean, even in their state championship years, they had a game like that. I like Rankin in this game to go on the road and beat Westbrook. I'm sorry to my friend Caden out there who's a huge Westbrook fan who's probably listening tonight, but I think Rankin wins this one, and I think it'll be very close. I don't think Rankin continues the shutout string that they've got, but I do think the Red Devils win.
Harold takes on a resurgent Vernon Northside team. Vernon really looking to make some noise.
It's interesting because these two, kind of like Strawn and Gordon played for a long, long time. This is the 74th time that they've played, but they did not play each other last year. They haven't played since 2016 when Northside last won. But to this particular matchup, Harold at 2-0, they've put up big points. Northside at 1-0. I like the Hornets in this one. Another road team. I'm Gordon, Strawn. Well, I mean, that's neutral site. Borden County at home. I like Rankin on the road. I like Harold on the road in this one.
Gustine at Three-Way. Three-Way, a relatively new school, but they have gotten better and better really quickly.
They have, and they've done it defensively for the most part. They've had a lot. They had a lot of shutouts. They had 6 of them last year. Not quite that proficient, but I like. Again, we talk about how do teams build their resumes? How do they build their seasons, their records? Who you play? Freeway has played a little bit better schedule so far than Gustine, and that's why I think the Braves will be 3-0 when the night's over.
And then let's talk about Eden and Lomita. Eden state ranked, and taking on Lomita team, I think they can improve their record, gather up that win Friday night.
Lomita's a team that kind of goes a little bit under the radar, even when they're better, like they're getting better, because you have Richland Springs, you have Cherokee, you have Rochelle, teams all in that general same vicinity. But I tell you what, Eden will have their hands full, but give me the Yellow Jackets in this one to go, another road team to go and win.
Another game we've were talking about earlier, Klondike taking on Happy.
Happy is just, this is going to be a rebuilding year for the Cowboys for the first time in like 15 years, because you look, Stephen, Happy has been one of the state's best in the last 12 years. They've won 10 or more in 10 of the last 12 years. If they've started 0-2 for the first time in 7 years, the last time they had a losing season at 4-6. If they lose to Klondike, and let's face it, I mean, Klondike, they're going to get them unless something crazy happens. They're going to be 0-3 for the first time since 2011. If they start 0-4, that'll be the first time since the Cowboys started playing six-man in 2000, because the last time they started 0-4, they went 0-4. They went 0-10 in 95. That's the last. So this is going to be a rebuilding year for the Cowboys. And, man, just the schedule. Klondike going to take them, unfortunately, this week.
Follette makes the trip down to Whiteface. Follette, not winless on the year, but that's
good team, though. Good team, but I love the way Whiteface bounced back after their loss to May. Give me the Antelopes big in this one, but Follette's going to win their share, just not this week.
All right, we'll be back with our final thoughts right after this on the West Texas Friday Night Preview Show. Welcome back to the West Texas Friday Night Preview Show. Mark, as we wrap up the show, some interesting facts or little nuggets that are going to come into play as we go through Friday night.
All right, here you go. Panhandle in 2 games with a grand total of 0 punts and putting up 132 points. Was their biggest win over Stratford since Stephen Orr's senior year in 1984 when they beat them 55-0 last week, when they won 61-19. All right, Lockney's biggest win ever against Floyd Ada last week when they won 51-6. They had never 45'd Floyd Ada, so to speak there. All right, teams that have started 2-0 that you don't expect: Boys Ranch, Sanford, Fritz, San Angelo, Lakeview. We've talked about that some. Happy and Mason, a couple of teams that you don't expect to be 0-2. State's longest winning streak belongs to Gordon. Longest losing streak in the state belongs to Monte Alto, who's lost 46 in a row.
All right, that'll do it for this week. We'll see you Friday night on the West Texas Friday Night Scoreboard Show.